you want to start at, but I'm telling you right now, we're going to sell between X and X. And I've been right on every other deal that we've done. So he knows whatever. He just is stubborn and wants to try it his way. But he ultimately knows that we're going to sell it for what it needs to be sold for. Yeah. And also with this property, it has a Section 8 tenant. So he feels like it's worth a little bit more because you have like guaranteed income.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad you had the conversation ahead of time, I guess, is what I wanted to say, right? The fact that you ahead of time had the conversation so that, I think one of the mistakes a lot of real estate agents make is they just list it at a high price. They don't have the conversation ahead of time. And then, within a couple of weeks or whatever it is, they go back to the seller and say, hey, we need to adjust the price. But when you're upfront with it and you give a range, right? Range pricing is what we call it. Then they're going to be more open. And if they give you resistance, which sometimes they will, they'll say things like, well, you told me, like example of the property we have now, where they said, you told us it was 600. And I said, actually, no, what I said. And exactly how I just said it with a smile on my face, like, no, actually, what I said was that, the high side was 600 and the low side in Millbury was 550. So we started on the high side, and he didn't, he just muted because he didn't say anything because that's what we said, right? It wasn't like I told him, hey, we're going to sell your house for 6. And then 2 weeks later, I'm coming back and saying, hey, I think we missed it, because and by the way, it's not just like we're in this together. I want you guys to realize that when you're having these conversations, like we are in this together. So, and I wish I recorded the conversation. It wasn't just one conversation, by the way. It was 2 conversations. It was 2 conversations with his 2 partners. So I had one conversation with the partner. I couldn't get them on the phone at the same time. Critical. If you are going to have a price adjustment call, ideally, best case scenario is to have the people on. Like if there's multiple decision makers, similar to what we teach, have your decision makers on the call, right? Like don't just do the price adjustment with one decision maker and then have to deal with you. But I just could not get them both on the call at the same time. So I had to do it that way. So I had one call, then I had a call with the second guy. Then I went back to the guy that the real decision maker, I guess. And they agreed to it. And they wouldn't quite go 5%, but I was able to get 4% adjustment on a $600,000 property. So from we are not, like Norman, this is what they said, we are not adjusting the price. Don't even talk to us. Like literally ignoring the calls for a couple days, calls, texts. I just kept going. Same way I reached out to them. So you guys have to understand that the same way that you get these listings, you have to be almost just as assertive when it comes to adjusting the price. And a lot of us have never had to do this before, because I know a lot of you guys are not haven't been in the business that long, right? So a lot of you haven't experienced yet going through a down market. So here are some of the reasons why adjustments are so important. Number one is they are, in a lot of ways, they're better than a new listing. Why do you think I say that? Why do you think I say it's better than a new listing?
They're sitting there just getting stale. No one's looking at it. It's not doing anything. Nobody's calling you.
That's right.
No leads.
Yep, that's definitely part of it. Well, I'll just give you the answer. Because it's already on the MLS. You don't have to go, you don't have to go order a photography. You don't have to get your assistant to put it on the MLS, get your signs installed, right? Spend all this time doing paperwork. It's already on the market. All you have to do is make a small adjustment in the price, and then all of a sudden you have a property under contract. That's why we like to say it's actually better than a new listing. And again, I'm not saying don't go get new listings. What I'm saying is get those price. That's a priority now when you're a business. Norman, that's your top 20% now. Everybody on this call, Ashley, Jennifer, Kaya, Monique, when you have listings that aren't selling, that's in your top 20%. Get those things sold or get rid of them. Why do you think I say get them sold or get rid of them?
If it sits, they're gonna expire.
Yep, that's one reason. What else?
It takes away your time if you know that it's not worth the investment of time to actually get it sold, or if your client is like unreasonable, then like doesn't really matter what you're gonna do because they're not gonna sell it.
That's right. It's an energy suck. It'll suck the life out of you sometimes. You know, you'll be thinking about it, dwelling on it, right? Wasting time. Yeah, you got to, at some point, you got to say, okay, listen, we're either going to sell this thing or we're not, and make a decision and move forward. You know, same thing like you said earlier. Some of you said, oh, I knew I was overpriced before I put it on. Well, you know if it's going to sell or not, right? I remember one of my old coaches, she said to me, she goes, man, what did she say? She said, how come your listings aren't priced right? And I says, they are priced right. She's like, no, they're not priced right. She said, because if they were priced right, they would be under contract. And I said, oh, snap. I said, I did a price adjustment last week. She said, it doesn't matter because it's under contract yet. She said, no. Do you have showings lined up? I said, no. She said, okay, then it's not priced right. It's priced right when you have showings lined up and it's under contract. So use that philosophy and you will do good when it comes to getting your listings sold. All right, so let me go back to the slideshow for a minute. Let's see. So the better than a new listing leads to more listings. Here's what happens with buyers. When buyers show up and your listing's overpriced, what do? They go out and they find another agent, right? Like I tell you, if they show up and your listing's way overpriced, instead of working with you, they go out and they find another knucklehead agent to bring you a lowball offer. Happens all the time. So when you have good listings and they're priced right, people want to work with you. They sell and other sellers want to work with you. Obviously, it's more profitable. And then energy is what I just talked about when it comes to energy. This is just an example of a property that shows like what happens when the property just sits and sits and sits. They started actually at $339.9, ended up finally selling the property for $299. And the reality is, if they would have started at $299 and they took 129 days, if they would have started at $299, probably would have sold the property for about $310 to $320, because they would have had a lot of people show up. They would have had multiple offers. So it just, you know, the key is to, you need to price right as close to as you can out of the gate. But the other thing is, if you can't, then you need to frame at the listing appointment, right? You need to explain to the client, to the seller. I think I'm sharing my screen with you guys, right? Yeah, you guys can see my screen. You need to share with the sellers up front, like, this is the range. You need to stay in touch weekly. Now I'm not talking about just weekly. Like, I'm talking about over delivering on your communication. Like, they are like, man, this person friggin' working harder than me to get this property sold. Like, they're just not calling me saying, hey, I want you to reduce the price. They're friggin' on it. Like these sellers, they got to believe you're not even sleeping because their property hasn't sold. Like, that's the level of communication. Okay. Now it says here, start having the conversations around 3 weeks. That's, it depends on the market. I liked around 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks. Now, your market better than me. If your market might be a 1 week market, depending on where you're located. I don't know, it's hard to know, but I'll tell you that it's, you need to know your market and what's going on in your market. Be honest, again, upfront. Hey, This is what's happening. I've got some great scripts in the university that you guys all have access to. Real conversation scripts. Like, you know what the guy said to me? I was talking to my wife about this last night. And when she's like, wow, she was impressed. Like, I can't believe you got the price adjustment, because they said multiple times, we're not lowering the price. Do not ask us, do not waste our time. And still did it. Why? Because I listened to them. I showed up. I communicated. I kept asking questions. I got on their side of the table with them. When he said, when he said to me, you know what, I'm not giving this house away. Listen, I'm the same as you, man. When we have to adjust the price, it drives me crazy. Like, I hate having these conversations. Like, this is the worst conversation I have to have as a real estate agent, calling a seller and telling them that they have to adjust the price. But that's my job. You hired me to tell you the truth, right? Yeah, that's it. That's the conversation. Like, be honest with people. Come from contribution. You know what? When we adjust the price, yeah, we both take less money. We're both taking less money when we adjust the price, not just you. And I trust me, I want to sell my listings for over asking price, but we don't control the market. You guys understand that, right? And then play to win. So just play to win. Again, this comes down to what I said earlier about, when you have a listing, it's overpriced, it's not going to sell, the seller's difficult. Sometimes you got to do I'm going to send you two agreements. You sign one, pick one. One of them is a price adjustment. The other one's a release from my agreement, because I unfortunately cannot serve your needs at this point, at this price. I cannot live up to the expectations you have. The market's just not allowing us to achieve the goal. Whatever you want to say, but there does come a point where you just say, okay, I'm going to send you two documents. You pick one. One of them is going to be to adjust the price to 5% below, depending on the price point. It might be a little less, but let's say 3 to 5% below. And the other one's going to be a release of our agreement together. And I'm okay with either one you decide to sign. You choose. I'm okay with either one. And it's going to be wild, because you're going to be surprised that half the people will sign the release because they know how serious you are. And if they trust you, then they will do the right thing. So let me get into some questions. What questions do you have? Let me stop sharing my screen and let me know what questions you guys have. This is my quick presentation on price adjustments. Let me know what you guys think. Just nailed it. All right. I love it. Any questions at all, or no? Nothing? No thoughts? Wow. I've never had pure silence like this. What's on your mind? Can you guys even hear me? Is there anybody even there?
So, David, I used your script in the university a couple times last year, and it definitely worked, by leading with empathy and letting them know that kind of like this hurts me as much as it hurts you type of thing. And I just let them, we went over analytics. I went over the numbers, talked to them about it, and